The L.J. Davis Sunday School class used to meet here on Sunday mornings at the Methodist Church in Enterprise, Mississippi. The building burned in 2016 and was rebuilt. In the new facility, a plaque has the name. How is a Sunday school class named for a football coach? If you go to a small town on Friday nights, look for the lights. You'll find football in its purest form. In Enterprise, the Bulldogs play on a field named for a legendary coach who arrived in 1949.
The best game I've ever seen in my life was when Enterprise played Wayne. The champion. Wayne Dumas and Paul Dovey and
Wayne Patrick,
my brother.
Yeah, Boone was the quarterback.
Yeah.
Did Pat ever tell you about
These are men who played for Coach L.J. Davis at Enterprise High School, some in the 50s and 60s and 70s. The stories go on and on.
Turned out he was taking all of us one at a time. He made you think you were the most important person, but it turned out.
Well, we all eased up left field. He was in the sleep at the edge of the light pole. All it was one of the shade off him light. He wouldn't sleep, and we left him. He went over there, got down on that knee, son, and got that whistle. And when he blowed it up, his feet just went apart. He was right in his ear, just blowing that whistle. He was hollering and screaming.
When I finally agreed to play football, we went on the field and we started playing. And he called me and said, "I'm going to give you a nickname." And I said, "What?" He said, "Sure." When everybody, he just something, and it stuck with me through the years. And everybody that knows me now, they still call me, and I answer to it. Yeah.
And Joey said he's in the dressing room sitting back there, and he said, "Everything on me hurts." And he heard somebody come in and say, "Where's Austin?" He knew who it was. And he said that the crowd just kind of moved out of the way, and Coach walked back there. He stood him up, put his arms around him, squeezed him. He looked at him in the face and he said, "Son, you run it like a man. I'm proud of you." And I said, "Well, Joey, did that kind of help you?" And he said, "Mr. Joe, that made my life." Now, this is a kid we're playing against. He could walk in a room with 20 men, and within 10 minutes, 19 of them would be listening, because he'd be telling old hunting tales and football tales. Had the most phenomenal memory I've ever seen. I've been down to his house, and some guy would pull in there with a little pot belly and a bald head, and he'd say, "Coach, do you remember when we played Sandersville?" He said, "You remember that old 78 was in front of you couldn't do nothing with? And you kept holding him?" He said, "I told you to quit holding him. Just punch him. Don't hold him, punch him." He could remember plays that guy made 40 years ago.
And I saw a guy over at the post office one day, and he was a math teacher. And I said, I like to play football, but I don't know, even where the school's at. He said, "Well, hop in the car, I'll take you over there." So I got in the car with him, and we went over there to the school. And Coach Davis was not in the dressing room. He actually was in the ag building. So I went over there and found him, and I introduced myself, and I said, "I just moved to town, Coach, and I'm gonna start school here when it opens." And he said, "Well, I need a manager, because I weighed about 120 pounds." And he said, "I need a manager. Would you like to manage?" And I said, "No, sir, I want to play football." So we went out there and got me some gear, and I tell you, it was pretty ragged, because everything had been given out. And so we went out there, and I remember about the second week we were practicing kickoffs, and he had me going down on kickoffs, and the old headgear I had, the face mask collapsed and it broke my nose. And I went home, and I was laying on the couch with an ice pack on my nose, and somebody knocked on the front door, and it was Coach. And he came in and he said, "Miss Harrington, can I borrow your son for a little while?" And she said, "Sure, Coach, what you gonna do?" He said, "I'm gonna take it and ready to get him some equipment before he kills himself." So he took me to Judge Little's and bought me a brand new headgear. And I wore that headgear for 4 years. I sure did. I did. Yeah. I even have a name on it, so when he issued headgears every year, I get that same headgear. But he was he was kind of one of those people that you run into is kind of larger than life.
It's hard to describe what a man he was. He could give you a speech before a football game, but first, he was going to have prayer. He always had a preacher here, a Baptist preacher of the Methodist Church, and if one of them couldn't be there, we had the Lord's Prayer. That was before every ball game. But after he got through his pregame, you could run through that wall right there. That's how he could motivate people. And I enjoyed every minute that I played by Coach Davis.
I was 140 pounds, talking about them 140 on playing guard on the line. And we went 7-3. Should have been 8-2 with nobody that's been on the field on a regular basis except them two starters right there. He coached us, and we went and done that. We had Taylorsville beat.
Yeah, y'all had a small senior class, and then because a lot of us started in the 11th grade because they had nobody else to play.
Of course, he coached us all, and we played for him and played hard, you know, because he demanded that now. When we went out under that hill there, it was his way or the highway, you know. But Coach Davis was friends with my daddy here in town. Daddy owned the feed, seed, fertilizer store, you know, way back, and knew a lot of people. So Coach was involved in the community. He was involved in school, of course, and in church too. So I mean, he was a leader. You know, God had him in a place that he at that time and era. He had him where he wanted him, and to be a leader, I think, because he was a leader here in this town.
L.J. Davis was raised in Stanton, Alabama, a small community in Chilton County. He was the third of 8 children, with 4 brothers and 3 sisters. He attended high school in Maplesville, where he lettered in football and basketball. At the age of 19, LJ enlisted in the United States Navy, where he served on the supply ship USS Atlanta. His ship remained in the South Pacific until the end of World War II. Following his discharge from the Navy in December of 1945, he returned home to Alabama, where a close friend who played football at the University of Southern Mississippi encouraged Davis to join him in Hattiesburg to try out for the football team and earn a scholarship. While on that visit to Mississippi Southern, as he called it, he met a student, Winifred Dallas. They dated while she attended USM and while he played football at Pearl River Community College. 2 years later, they were engaged and were married on April 15, 1948. While he was a team manager at Southern Miss, LJ expressed interest in a job opening at Enterprise School in Clark County. He graduated on August 15, 1949, and moved to Enterprise the next day. And that's where it began. On a grass lot behind the school, Davis began shaping his team, and with it, the future of an entire community.
Unbelievable motivator. All good coaches had that, but he had something extra. Like I say, a bunch of little kids from a small town, and week in and week out, playing against 3, 4, 5A schools. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. He could motivate you. When he told us, when we come out of that locker room, if he told us we could run through that brick wall right across the breezeway, we would have hit it wide open, and that's just the kind of motivator he was.
I might have been 6 foot. I was always tall and skinny, about 145 pounds. And over the course of the summer, when I come back to school for that fall, I was like 6'2", 199. And he was, when I got off the bus, he was standing there because he was monitoring, you know, when you get off the bus. And I walked by him, I said, "Good morning, Coach." And he didn't, "Good morning." And I kept on walking, and he said, "Frank?" I turned around and said, "Yes, sir." He looked at me, "Frank?" he couldn't believe how big I done got, in the course of one summer. And I still remember that when he got about halfway, he said, walk out of that field, run it again. Yeah. I looked, I said, my tongue was hanging out like this. I was tired. But you come out there, run it again, all the way down to
That's all you could hear.
That's all you could
hear.
They knew it. When I was in the 8th grade, my position was I was a running back / quarterback. He said, I got your position. He said, tight end. I said, Coach, tight end? I don't want to play no tight end. He said, you will play tight end in Enterprise as long as you finish Enterprise, you can play tight end. So that's what I played from then on.
During his 29 years of coaching, all of them at Enterprise, his teams won 195 games, lost 73, and tied 10. He coached 4 undefeated teams. In 29 seasons, he experienced a losing record just 4 times. In the late 1960s, 20 years after Davis came to Enterprise, a key player moved to town. A kid from the 9th Ward in New Orleans became the quarterback in 1968 and 69.
He knew all of my sisters because my sisters had come to school at Enterprise. When my sister Pat was here, he got her to race the whole football team. And she outran the whole football team. And that's one of the things he was saying. I hope you as fast as your sister is. So he didn't forget that. First thing, I had never seen anybody chew tobacco. Never. I was from the city, and he didn't mind a bit, spitting on the ground out there,
Gartman followed in Davis's footsteps and became the head coach at Enterprise in 1980. He coached his alma mater for 23 seasons, including 2 undefeated seasons and back-to-back state championships in Class 1A and the following year in Class 2A.
I coached because of him. I learned it all from him, the basic stuff. Now, wasn't complicated, but it was the basic stuff, and to let the kids know, hey, you care about them, and they mean more to you than the game does. And that's what he instilled in all of us, and he instilled that in me.
On July 6, 1990, Orley Hood, a writer for the Jackson Daily Clarion Ledger newspaper, wrote an article entitled 99 Great Things About Mississippi. Along with Eudora Welty, Walter Peyton, and Archie Manning, number 49 on the list said, L.J. Davis, retired football coach at Enterprise, whose lessons transcended the games.
That's a real early one.
This has got to be.
Coach.
My glasses. Number 44, Jerry Skelton. 53, Percy Mallard.
Yeah.
That had to be like an early year.
Yeah.
I didn't know who they were. I've got it.
I saw a picture frame. Jerry Skelton.
The man with 1,000 sons had 3 daughters.
We lived up by the field then. The field was right behind the auditorium of the school, and our house was right next to it, so it wasn't far to walk. And I remember after the football games, going under the stands, picking up coins, That was probably my earliest memory, hunting the coins.
My first memories of football and Daddy with football is in that teacher's home, and the field being right outside. We had a little picket fence around it was actually the front yard, I guess, but that pretty much backed up to the field.
Well, when you're a child and you're in it, he's just your daddy. There's nothing. I knew that he had a lot of friends around town and the area, but I don't think I realized just how special he was until I left Enterprise, until I graduated, until I was in college. And you would meet people and where are you from? And they'll ask if you know L.J. Davis. And I was like, well, Yeah.
I did not know that they would go coon hunting after a ball game. Of course, Daddy and his hunting, I mostly remember him bird hunting. He quail hunted. And my birthday was always in December, and for December, Mother would always ask me, she'd say, what do you want for your birthday dinner? And I wanted quail with rice and gravy and biscuits and English peas and her devil's food cake for my birthday cake.
He had hair, and then he came back and he looked like that.
That's the way.
And that's how he stayed.
That's how he was the rest of his life.
It didn't matter that we cried.
That's the way I remember him. I don't remember.
Oh, he had pretty hair.
Describe for me the relationship between he and your mom and kind of her role all those years.
Oh, she took the back burner all the time, but she was the hardest working woman I've ever known. And I don't know how she did it. You know, we had people coming in and out of our house all the time, or, you know, spending the weekends, and we ate 3 home-cooked meals every day. She made biscuits every day, and we sat down at breakfast every day. And Dad had 3 biscuits every day.
I don't know how she did it, because it wasn't just football. I mean, she supported every sport just like he did. I mean, she always ran the concession stands at basketball games, and any out-of-town basketball game, we were there. And I mean, we went to every ball game that Enterprise played.
You know, people think that he would be at home like he was on the football field, tough and rough, and no. We didn't talk football. The only football I ever saw him watch was the Saints playing on Sunday, and he might doze off and take a nap during that.
I felt special because he was my dad, you know, and I felt blessed. I even felt sorry for people that didn't have him as their dad.
Charlotte was his girl, you know, she was the oldest, and she went with him, and yes, she would say, you can't go with me, I've got Daddy to myself right now, you know, and I'd go in and tell Mom, you know, and she'd say, well, next time you're going by yourself, you know, she'd take care of me.
No, I'd say he treated us all the same. He was probably tired of us by the time I came along. Somebody asked if he had nicknames for us, and he called me Kathy, and he called Kathy Charlotte, and, you know.
I might ride out to the place, what he called the place. We called it the farm, or where he had cows, and we'd go out there and count cows to make sure they were all there. But that was kind of his happy place. He enjoyed going out there. And
he brought home a goat for us as a pet, and her name was Nancy. We have this goat, Nancy. Well, Nancy had babies, 2, which we named, Kathy and I don't know that Charlotte had anything to do with it. We named them Billy and Willie. And Billy and Willie drove Daddy crazy because they tore things up, they'd get out of the fence, they would eat things in the garden, you know, they just drove him crazy. And so one day they just disappeared, and he told me they got out and he couldn't find them. So, you know, he told me that. I believed him. If he told me it was dark outside, I would believe him. And it was after I was married, I was in my 30s, and we were out at the place, the farm, and we were walking along, and there's this big pit in the ground. And I said, what is that? Somebody dug a big pit. Why is that there? And he said, oh, I brought the football team out here camping, and we cooked those goats. And I said, what goats? He said, oh, you remember those goats you and Kathy had? And I said, you cooked Billy and Willie? He said, yeah, we cooked them over a fire. And I was like, and so I was devastated, because all those years I thought they ran away, and come to find out he ate them.
I can remember being at the basketball games and sitting down on the court in chairs in the Coliseum in Jackson, and people just kept coming up to him, and they'd shake his hand, and it's so good to see you, and pat him on the back, and You know, and by then I was a young teenager, but I can remember thinking, why are they doing this? You know, and I was like, Daddy, why do they keep coming up to you? And he said, oh, I don't know.
Well, I'm very honored that the community and his former students and football players think that much of him. He was that special to me. It's just an honor, and his grandchildren are so honored by it. Even his great-grandchildren that don't know him, they do know him because their parents their daddies have told him, and they'll tell you, that's Papa Davis, and I'm going to Papa Davis's football field.
At the end of his 25th season, in which the Bulldogs went undefeated, the community gave him a new car. His 1977 team won the Sam Dale Conference Championship with an 8-2 record. It was his 29th season as a coach and would be his last.
And I ran to him, begged him as coach, I said, please, you got one more year. I got one more year, you got one more year, please. And he looked at me, tears set in his eyes. He said, Frank, he said, I would love to, but the time is now. The time is now.
On August 12th, 1993, the town of Enterprise lost its hero.
And I asked, I said, what were y'all doing? He said, Granddaddy wanted to burn some brush piles out there and the wind got in it. And it was sweeping it across the hayfield to where he had 60 rolls of hay. And he had a pine top out there. Knowing him, he wouldn't quit. Because his clothes were wet. Everything on him was wet when I got to him. He went out with his boots on. He went out doing just what LJ would do, working hard, and never quitting. We got him in the ambulance, and they wouldn't let me ride with him, so I followed the ambulance. We got him to the ER. We took him in the cardiac unit, and they said, you can't go in here. I said, I'm coming. And I went in, and that doctor worked for 45 minutes. His sweat was pouring off of him, and he looked at me and said, he won't die. I said, well, can he come back? And the doctor said, no, he can't come back. And so we all kind of just relaxed, and I went and got Miss Davis and brought her in there, and we had a little time visiting with the old rascal, and it was a sad day.
The stories of our hometown heroes become legendary. What we do know is this: a hero's life isn't spent, it is invested. L.J. Davis invested himself here, cultivated in the community of Enterprise for 50 years. And generations of people, boys, thousands of them, who became men, fathers, husbands, coaches, and leaders, were the result.
Several times, even in the playoffs, it'd be a huge crowd there. And we'd be on a drive. And I wouldn't have to think long about a play because I could hear him. Clear as day. They could hear him. Clear as day. Running again. I didn't hesitate. Did not hesitate one bit. We ran it again.
You had to meet him to know him, because you can tell all the stories you want to, you can sit here and reminisce all you want to, but if you didn't know him personally, if you didn't play for him, there's a bond there that you missed. He was a second daddy. And I loved him.